Hello. I haven't gone live for a while. Um, I'm sitting here doing some embroidery and I'm working on a piece that I'm trying to finish in order to do the second part of a video about it. I had the first part up, but it's a kind of a big piece, so it took me a while to finish. And I haven't been filming any of it today because my nails are in bits. And there's this kind of expectation on videos, isn't there, that, um, if you're girly, that you've got your nails looking nice and not just clean, but if you paint your nails, they have to be all fancy. And that when you turn up on camera, you're supposed to look a bit made up and everything. Now I've got a bit of blusher and lippy on, and that's about it. But my hair is nice and clean today. And it's a girl thing that we're supposed to look nice all the time. And that's related to the topic today. I hope you don't mind if I do a little bit of work here and there. It might help me think or it might put me off. This isn't very thought out. The reason I decided to do something on this topic was that when I was sitting here doing my bit of morning embroidery, I usually get about half an hour, three quarters of an hour in. I was watching some videos on YouTube, and I'm in this kind of algorithm at the moment that I came across um, where ladies, mostly black American ladies, are talking about um, a thing that they're saying is a trend. I don't know because I didn't check figures of women saying that they don't want children and don't want to get married. So they're either putting off getting married, and I know that is a trend, that has been a trend in society, but uh, the not having children thing, people are generally having less children, and some of that could be down to the fact that who can afford children anymore because wages haven't gone up in a long time, but you're expected to be able to pay for children as well as rent. And everybody knows that economically the situation has gotten worse in a lot of countries. And people are reduced to kind of living like slaves, really, and sitting there. Not with as secure a tenure as maybe a slave in medieval times, a serf might have had on their land, even. Um, so it's a very difficult environment to bring a kid into, isn't it? Or children, plural, because people think about having a kid. They tend to think a lot of the time about having maybe more than one kid because there's the extra worry of, well, is that kid going to be feeling that not having siblings, you see? So that's a consideration as well. And of course, I'm somebody who doesn't have kids, but I know the people who have kids have a lot of these considerations floating around in their mind. But why are women, if this is in fact a trend, and it seems to suggest, things seem to suggest that there is a falling birth rate, definitely. Um, and it seems to be on social media a lot, even given that you can get stuck in an algorithm and think that that is the norm without going and looking at figures. I think it is becoming more the norm among younger people that it's becoming more acceptable, I would say, for women not to be married in some ways. Because I'm sitting here in Ireland, and in Ireland, I'm always talking about a writer called Edna O'Brien, who is a fabulous writer. But she left Ireland and she was writing her first novel called The Country Girls, set in Ireland about rural Irish girls who went to the city to get jobs. And from like the 50s onwards, the 50s really was the start of, it wasn't the start of women's liberation, but it was the start of one of the waves of it. And the suffragette movement was a much earlier movement that was looking for votes for women, equal rights in terms of votes for women. And women didn't, in England, women didn't have votes before then. So, and many other places in the world. And So in the 50s, women had more freedom in that they could go out and get work, but there was still this atmosphere, certainly in Ireland, that it was something you did before you got married and that you were definitely going to get married. Now, I'm somebody who stayed unmarried for well, over 50 years of my life now. So for over half a century, I have over a half a century's experience of not being married. Um, and so, I can speak on the not being married thing with authority, and, I can't speak on what it's like being married, obviously. But it was assumed in Ireland that any female was going to want to get married from even from the 50s when women started having more independence because it got written into law that you weren't kind of literal property of your husband, which you were before then. You were considered chattel, so that is property, like a cow or money in the bank or something. You're an asset to your husband, you say, property. And this is reflected even still in the fact that women take men's name sometimes when they get married, is a hangover of that idea. And the proprietorial idea about women is part of the whole, you hear people call it the patriarchal system, a system that is designed to favor men and be run by men, where women were traditionally hampered somewhat by the fact that they had children because they got sort of railroaded in some cases into minding children and being kind of a glorified nanny, because not just it was considered by men or they were being told by men that it was their natural role, but that it was very easy for men to opt out of because women weren't going to leave a child crying. A guy could just hop out and, like, Victorian times, men were famous for not really having a lot to do with their children. And in fact, in some cases, if you were rich enough, women didn't have a whole lot to do with their children either, in that there was this whole support system of nursemaids and nannies and things like that. But that was like, rich people were a different category, weren't they? So, there was this idea of traditional roles for women, but that was very tied up with the biological aspect that once a woman had a child, there's a bond created between a woman and a child, and a woman feels that I have to mind this thing that came out of my body, and I have a very strong bond with it, and that is what makes me want to mind it. Sorry, you call them children it. You can tell I'm a childless woman. My attitude to children. I like them. I I don't. I wouldn't like being a mother because I don't like a lot of noise that I haven't created, like playing the guitar or something, and that crying that children do when they need attention, in babies and things. I That just does my head in. It's like a cat meowing. I can't ignore it. And it's designed like that. But I didn't sign up for all that. And the reason I didn't sign up for all that was because of all these other factors that I've just spoken about. And those factors are factors which limit women's other options, you see. And I think that it seems possible to me, and it could again be just the algorithm I'm stuck in on YouTube at the moment, but it seems possible to me that black women have this far more sussed out, black American women have this far more sussed out than white ladies do. Perhaps not. I might be wrong, you see, but it's this vein of black ladies making videos that I'm talking about. They know every trick in the book that's been played on women to shame them into wanting that role more than they want to live their own lives. And um, The thing is about being a parent, or anybody who, even anybody who isn't a parent, would probably have the imagination from seeing parents with their children and everything, to understand that you have to put another little person's needs before your needs when you're a mum, because that person is utterly dependent on you for food and clothing. And also, and sadly, a lot of mothers, including my own, don't give this very well, for love and affection. And you need that from both parents, actually. And but parenthood doesn't really come with a test or anything first. So parents mess up in lots of ways, and they're lucky if they get through it and the child turns out to be an okay adult, you know. Um, but a lot of people want this desperately, but to decide how much of it is brainwashing and how much of it is really wanting to be in that role as part of who they are in their lives, because it is a role, really. Parenthood is a role. And the reason I'm talking about ladies, and saying that women not wanting children or marriage is a whole category in its own, in a way that separates them out from guys, is not just that we're um, not talking specifically about married couples on this. It's that the psychology of men and women about it is different because of the patriarchal nature of the society that we live in. It's set up to benefit men, because it's set up by men, and because men were brought up in previous generations being in a patriarchal society where women were seen as lesser in that society than men, which is a big statement, isn't it? Because I can see some guys would disagree with that statement and say, no, 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 I respect women. I see them as equal to me. But in these ladies' videos, they point out every single trick that guys have to persuade us that they do see us as equal to them, in order to play this trick on us, which traps us quite often into signing up for a role that we would not otherwise have signed up for. And this was a role that quite early on I had decided I didn't want to sign up for myself. I decided it when I was a teenager. I was actually, the first boyfriend I ever had was very, very briefly engaged to him when I was 16. So he was expecting me to marry him when I was 18. And my parents went along with this idea and were perfectly happy with that. And when um, he gave me a ring, which wasn't actually an engagement ring because I wasn't 18, but it was a ring. He gave me this ring and had this conversation with me about, when we're married and all this. I went to bed that night after we had that conversation and I had a nightmare about it, where he worked in a furniture polishing firm. They did restored furniture and things. And they did this French polishing thing, where you have shellac and things like that, and you do things with furniture and make it look nice again. I dreamt that night that I was in a house that was full of furniture and I was polishing furniture, and I had the deepest sense of unhappiness. It was very dark and miserable and an empty existence, even though it was a house full of old furniture. My role was a furniture polisher in that miserable, cold, empty house, empty except for the furniture. So I was a slave to furniture polishing. The guy wasn't in the dream, but it was about him, and it was about what I felt my life would be if I married him. So the next morning, I broke it off with him. I just said, I don't think I don't want to do this. So he wanted to get married. So that was the deal breaker for him. And there was I was only 16, there was no further discussion or anything. He just went off, and there were no hard feelings or anything like that. He just went off with himself and went looking for somebody else and got somebody else, got married. He's divorced now. But It was a nightmare. Just, that I knew uh, the dream was telling me it would be a nightmare to be married. And that was because I had things I wanted to do as a person. I wanted to uh, have a career. And when you say career, it sounds like um, guys always make it sound like when you see them making videos and things about it and putting out any kind of propaganda about it, a career woman, it sounds like it's always business. Career sounds like business when they say it. um I didn't want that. I knew I wanted to do something creative or interesting. And when I was in school as a very small kid, I used to spend my day daydreaming about what I wanted to be while the nuns were busy preparing it, learning how to sew and things like that for when you were married, so that you could look after your husband and children and make clothes for them and things that women were expected to do in those days. And there was no discussion really of career except what career you might have before you got married. So girls in the classroom, some of them did want a career, but there were things like there were always, in fact, that was the only career I can think of that anybody ever wanted was an air hostess. Because they were the women who wanted to marry a captain of a plane, but get in a bit of trouble before they got married, you see. So that was as far as your imagination went. But I wanted to have these different careers because I was a big reader. And I was reading books. I think the first time I did it, lived my fantasy career out, was I was reading a book about Tutankhamun, and this book really captured my imagination. And I used to pretend to be Howard Carter or a female version of Howard Carter discovering Tutankhamun's tomb. I was an archaeologist, and I used to play at being an archaeologist in the garden and everything. And then I'd play at being show jumping horsewoman and or a choreographer or a truck driver or a poet or a writer, and all these things that I wanted to do. I thought they were all active and creative things, and nothing to do with um, having children and raising children, because I could see that being a mother had to do with walking around the place sighing heavily and doing a lot of chores, constantly cleaning up after other people. So I could see that what was valued in women was their ability to be able to keep a house clean and their looks. And the looks thing was mostly about unmarried women. So that was considered kind of the waiting stage, the waiting to be married. And you were really only valued on your looks. And one thing that these ladies whose videos I was watching had really right is that, um, like, I don't like making big generalizations because there are many lovely men out there who see women as people. But that is actually rarer than you might think. If you're a female watching this, you might have been misled by men into thinking that they care about stuff that you're up to. And they might be just in their mind saying, just keep her happy, pretend I'm listening. They might be in that mode and they actually don't care. And when they imply that you're nagging or saying you're nagging or you think too much, was the one I used to get a lot. When they're complaining in some way about you having an opinion or wanting to talk to them about something that's important and they don't want to talk about it, um, they will turn it into you're too, or um, we don't need to talk about this, or that's not important. So invalidating what is important to you. But yet, when they're being nice to you and they're trying to boost you up and everything to keep you happy, kind of is their mentality, to keep you happy. Um, the compliments that they give you are usually along the lines of you look nice. So it's about external stuff. It's not really about, you know what, you're so clever. Or something that you think, yeah, that's a nice compliment. I know I'm clever. I'm glad he realizes that. And as I say, not all guys are like this, but you may have noticed this, that it tends to be with a lot of lads, and being unmarried, I've gone out with a lot of people, haven't I? With a lot of fellas, it tends to be they think you're thrilled when you're getting compliments about how you look, but it doesn't occur to them to compliment you on anything else. And why is that? Well, these ladies on YouTube had it really sussed out. It's because they don't care about anything else. The rest of it is meaningless to them. And in fact, some of them, a lot of them, I'm sorry, but a lot of them think that everything you do is stupid because you're a stupid woman. They think women are more stupid than men. And the reason is because they've gotten their way for so long. So women, this type of woman that I'm talking about, that gets up and says, I've decided I don't want children and I don't want to be married, or I don't want to be married yet. They might be postponing it, or they might not want to be married at all. They might have made a definite decision that they don't think they're ever going to be into it. Um, the reasons they're giving are these kinds of reasons that they're going, well, I don't see enough of a plus side of it, because if I get married and have children, I'm looking after children and an adult who doesn't really respect me. And the respect element of it is very important, because how could you possibly respect somebody whose entire value to you is based on how they look and the fact that you can have sex with them, you know? And the rest is just doesn't matter at all. And I had a very upsetting time recently that I lost a male friend of mine that I had been friends with for about 30 years at least. And he was not one of my first boyfriends, but he was a boyfriend I'd had when I was still fairly young. I was in my 20s. And I split up with him because he wasn't coming home at night. He was coming home very drunk in the middle of the night after being asked to ring me if he was going to be out late, and let me know where he was so I wouldn't be worried about him. And he just continued to go out drinking and ignore me, basically. So I split up with him. But then afterwards, we didn't really have any hard feelings, and I stayed friendly with them and hung out with them a lot afterwards. But many, many years later, and quite recently, he did some weird stuff where I had changed considerably as a person and was had matured a lot, and had matured a lot in my view of how people treat me and everything. And I used to put up with a lot of stuff from boyfriends, because I used to do a thing that a lot of women do, which is try and be accommodating and forgiving when they appear to be rude to you or not care or demeaning or something, that you kind of go, oh, well, we live in a patriarchal society. They're products of that. They don't really know what they're doing. I'll ask for the respect, but just asking for it and no consequences, you don't get it. They just keep treating you like that, you see. So this is why none of my relationships went on longer than about 2 years, was about the time when I split up with people, because you really get to know somebody's character. For me anyway, it takes me about 2 years to get to know somebody. So I'd sort of go, after 2 years, I'd kind of go, yeah, he doesn't really respect me as a person and doesn't really care about me, so I'm off. And I felt very constrained in relationships where the person didn't care about me, because they kept seeing me as this sort of um, female whose function was to look pretty and sleep with them. And nothing else I did mattered, and in fact could be jeered at. Why would you want to do that? You think too much. Um, What are you up to now? You're always doing something mad. And they'd be all things that if a guy did it, they'd be praising them. And in fact, the latest one, the friend, when I got him out of my life, eventually I decided, no, I don't even feel safe around him because it's an active kind of campaign he has to run me down. And I finally saw it, and it hurt very badly because I had been friends with him for so long. But to finally see it, I went, wow, that's kind of evil, actually. He was trying to persuade me I was mad. He was trying to persuade me, well, maybe you're autistic, maybe you have uh, maybe have some sort of disorder like autism or something, um, that makes you behave in ways where you want a lot of hobbies. Basically, that seemed to be the only reason that he thought that. And saying things like I had hired him and worked out the money I was going to pay him and everything for some job he was doing for me, and was checking in on him every day to see if he was going to meet the deadline. And he said I would be an awful person to work with and things like that. And then did weird things where he rigged a chess game I was playing with him online, and after me saying no, I don't want a handicap in the game, I'll win it fair and square or lose it fair and square. And he did this deviously in the background. And I know he had done that before. He had done that with his wife before. Had he thought she was having an affair? She actually was, but he spent 2 years spying on her. Um, and I realized when he was doing the devious thing to me in the background that it was the devious behavior he was enjoying. And the devious running me down and everything, saying things to me. And he'd say things to me, and like say, he'd say, "You're mad," and I'd say to him, "You know what? I don't let people speak to me like that anymore. So if you don't mind, if you don't have if you have something that's not nice to say to me, think before you say it because I will call you on it." And I used not to be like that. I used to let things like that go. And he used to do the guy thing of saying that was a joke. They're never jokes when they say these things. Say I was doing embroidery now, and I had a boyfriend, and he said, "Oh, you're doing your little embroidery. You're so cute." Because I had a boyfriend who used that tactic, and he was very covert, actually a narcissist because he had no empathy for anybody, which is the big giveaway. But he used to call around to me, and he'd see me doing gardening in the afternoon, cutting the grass or something. He'd come around and he'd go, "Oh, you're so cute, you're so cute," and start laughing when I was doing the garden. And I'd look at him and go, "Is this guy an idiot? Why is he laughing? What's so funny about somebody doing their garden?" But for him, seeing a female doing that was so sweet and cute. And I think the idea was you were supposed to think you were inept at everything. And whenever I was fixing anything around the house, um, he tried to ignore it most of the time. But there were a lot of things that if he saw me doing, he'd either think it was, "Oh, that's so sweet. You're so sweet. Such a sweet female." You know, it was actual despising of that female activity, what he saw as a female activity, despising the activity, but packaging it up as, "That's grand now, you female, you stay in your box, and I'll call you cute and you'll like it." And he used to buy me flowers every Friday because that kept me in my box as far as his thinking was concerned as well. She can't say I'm not a nice guy. I buy her flowers on Friday, even though women aren't stupid. I'd look at the flowers and I'd go, "Wow, he bought the 2.99 one. I wish he'd extend himself to the 5.99 ones because he knows I love those ones because they smell nice and everything." He always buys the cheapest ones. So it's a transactional thing in his mind. Now, another guy could stick up for him and say, "Oh, what a bitch. He bought her flowers every Friday and she's complaining. You see, women are nags." But it's actually the whole picture. When you see the whole picture of the tricks that they do to keep you in the box of trying to please them all the time. It's creepy and weird when you understand what it is. This guy, same guy, used to in the summer, he had a car and I didn't, and he used to bring me to the beach. But he used to play this stupid mind game with me that if the weather wasn't perfect, we weren't going. So I was told to wait at my house. And I would be waiting like an idiot, anxiously looking out to see if the weather was okay. Or, it's always cloudy in Ireland. Was that cloud going to move at the vital moment that he looked out after lunch and decided, yes, it's okay to go to the beach? Then, if the weather was perfect, if we had a miracle in Ireland and it was a cloudless day, he would roll up in his car and he'd go, right, are you ready? Feeling like a king. And I would be ready, but I would be ready anyway. But sometimes it would be cancelled. And if was cancelled, he wouldn't call around, or he would call around and go and just pretend, can I have a cup of tea or something? And I go, are we not going to the beach? And he'd go, oh, but it's cloudy. And you could tell that he was getting pleasure out of me not going to the beach because he got that little smirk that narcs get, coverts and overts, but coverts do it so well. This little smirk that goes, I see you're in pain and I love it. So he loved seeing me in pain. And sadly, uh, I went out with a few that used to do those kinds of games. The one that I got rid of because he was staying out all night. Um, he played a ridiculous game on me once about the washing up, where he argued that I should be doing his ironing his clothes and doing the washing up when we lived together because he went out to work. Now I was an artist, I had a career as well, and I earned more than him. I earned more than him that year that this happened. And I pointed it out to him. Well, I actually earned more. If that's the argument that you're using, I earned more than you this year. So I mean, really, like if I were like you, I'd be demanding that you prime my canvases or something. And so he wouldn't do the washing up. So he was eating off paper plates for about a month. And I was eating off, proper cutlery and plates and everything. But he was so angry about that. Because what he was trying to do was break me into being a subservient person so he could have somebody do houseworky things for him. And sadly, that's what a lot of men think women are. They think that they're housework slaves who are happy to settle for um, crumbs of affection off their table. And sadly, that is sometimes true because women are so devalued in society that often you are not even seen at all by anybody around you. You're only seeing the outside bit. Oh, you're very pretty and everything, and the compliments and everything. Or, if you're not super pretty, look at that ugly woman or something, people shouting at you on the street. Um, People feeling entitled to talk about the outside all the time, but not wanting to even see the person, which is very, very sad because it means that if you get into a relationship with those kinds of people, that they will never see you. If they don't see you in the beginning, they will never see you as a person. And everything you do becomes some kind of cardboard cutout of funny little things females do. Oh, look, she's doing her little embroidery or her little sewing. The giveaway is in the words. You hear men talk about women's activities like that a lot. Um, and a lot of women express themselves creatively, I noticed, since I started doing some sewing, various sewing projects on this channel. I do lots of other hobbies. I have loads of hobbies. But one of the hobbies is sewing, and my career is art. I'm a painter. So one of the things I noticed is that women express themselves a lot in their sewing because somebody asked me, that male friend asked me why I thought that was. And I said, it's because, he laughed at this. I said, it's because men don't criticize you when you're sewing because it's allowed. So they don't find it threatening. You can be doing all kinds of expressing yourselves in sewing and everything. And because women sew is what the guy is thinking, so that's not threatening. But women thinking or talking to them or wanting an answer about something or being philosophical or reading books, that's all really threatening. And I had somebody, when I was writing a book, the same friend was inviting me on holiday. And I said, did you not hear me? I said, I'm writing a book and I'm really excited about it. That kind of dissing of what you're doing goes on all the time with guys. You talk about something they are threatened by or are not interested in, they shut you down instantly. Now, women can do that as well. If you're talking about something and they're not interested, they can cut you off in the middle of a conversation and start talking about something else. And you go, okay, they're not interested. I'm off. Okay, bye. And off you go. But with guys, it's a deal breaker for a whole relationship. So it's a bigger deal. And when you really see it, if a guy isn't interested in you, or isn't interested in your opinion, or has all these buzz phrases like yes dear, I used to get a lot from one boyfriend, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear. And it was his way of saying F you. You might as well have just been saying F you, F you, F you, or shut up, shut up, shut up. um, they don't really want you to um, demonstrate with your personality that you are an equal and that you're not just a cardboard cutout of you know an obliging little female who walks around cleaning up after you and emotionally supporting you and things like that. They don't need a lot of emotional support. They do need jollying along a lot, and a lot of the support they need tends to be like mammy type support, which I find a real turn off. Guys who want a mummy, who want somebody to iron their clothes for them or wash their dishes or something, that is such a turn off to me because I just think, um, it's not attractive, like they're not behaving adult themselves. So I can't adult with them. And I am not going to turn into their mother. Like, I don't want a child. And uh, something that the black ladies on the videos had really sussed out, I think, possibly if it is more black ladies than white ladies making these types of videos, which it looks like it is, but again, my algorithm just shows me certain videos, so it can be very warped what you're in terms of being representative, what you're actually seeing on your recommends on YouTube. But it makes sense that uh, a lot of black people would have to put up with BS all over the place from people um, demeaning them or um, talking to them with kind of a double speak where they're pretending to be nice to them but are actually being really devious and don't actually like them or find them threatening or something like that, and are maybe bigoted or racist as well. So they've got a lot of BS like that in their lives anyway, and are sort of an underclass, perceived as an underclass within the kind of society that we live in by uh, guys in power, you see. So that would make sense that they see through BS a lot easier. But it took me many years to see through a lot of the BS because it's really hard to be super independent, because when you're independent, a really independent female, the amount of hate that you get is unbelievable because you're not playing along with anybody. And for other women, sometimes that is threatening for other women because they have played along and they might go off, get married, and then not be super happy because Women, statistically, um, women tend to be happier single than guys are. Guys are happier married, according to the stats. And, anecdotally, that's what I seem to observe, guys tending to be happy once the woman isn't complaining. So the whole thing in marriage seems to be geared towards, hey, look at you, just female, you just have as few needs as possible, look after the kids, and let me go and do my thing, and everything's cool. What are you complaining about? You see? And you're a nag then if that doesn't suit you, So breadcrumbs, you see, you're only getting the crumbs off the table there. You're not getting a whole person engaging with you at all. So, and that might suit some people because they just, I don't know, Florence Nightingale types. Like, who wants to give their whole life to other human beings? Um, the idea that women are selfish for wanting to do that is a guy thing that they put on you sometimes. I've only had it once, somebody calling me selfish. Um, and it was a guy calling me selfish. A female could do it. It's an insult a female could say to another female, but they don't. Um, I think the one females use is sort of implying that there's something wrong with you if you don't want children, which is a popular one with guys as well. But there's, I go the other way and say there would have been something wrong with me if I'd wanted them, because I wanted um, to have some kind of a creative career that I pursued. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that if I had kids, because I knew the chances were some guy was going to dump me with all the chores, because I'd gone out with guys and I know what they're like. And the most of them didn't, that I was going out with, did not want to do any chores and would try and slide out of anything that they could, you know. I did go out with a few that didn't mind doing chores, guys that like cooking and things like that. I don't really like cooking, and I love it if a guy likes cooking. I don't care about doing somebody's laundry or something like that. But dishes, I hate doing dishes. And I wouldn't pick up after a guy. I wouldn't walk around picking up clothes off the floor or something after a guy. I'd be quite angry if I had to do that. I'd call him on it. So, but I was great marriage material, was I? Because I knew I had things I wanted to do and I didn't want to waste my time taking care of my stuff and taking care of other people's stuff. And um, if you have kids, it would be really, really hard to get enough time to do the stuff that you want to be doing, as well as all the washing the dishes, making the dinners, looking after kids. And there is this mythical male that is supposed to be able to do those things. But if you go online, you will see a lot of men jeering men like that. And saying it's unmanly. And when men want to insult other men, what do they call them? They call them the B word. Really watch that, because that's a sign of a man that hates women. If he's calling other women the B word or the C word, which are the C word is really repulsive, because it's telling another man, it's when you're a guy angry with another guy and you're trying to tell him he's useless, you call him a part of a female anatomy. And you call him the part of the female anatomy that you actually had to travel through and come out of uh, straight after the womb, before you entered the world, after a woman being inside a woman for 9 months. And that part of the anatomy is the part that helped your immune system and everything fight off all these viruses and everything in the world. And that is what you choose to call another man when you're angry. And the B word is a female dog. So why are you using those female words when you're hating another man or showing another man you don't respect him? You see, you're saying, you're down on the level of what I think of women. So any man that uses those words is a man who deep down really hates women, and they can stand there all day and tell you it's just a word. But it's like the joke thing that they do. They say something is a joke. I had that done on me recently. I asked somebody to do me a favor. Again, an ex-boyfriend. I quite often remain friends with them afterwards because I don't kind of, I carry lessons with me, but I don't carry hate with me, you know. But this fella, he was going to do the favor for me, but in the middle of doing the favor, he insulted me. He said something really horrible about me. What was it? I can't even remember what it was. I can't remember what it was. It was something about my personality or something that was really horrible. And I couldn't react only because um, he was going to do me this favor. So I couldn't say, you know, don't speak to me like that. I don't appreciate being spoken to like that. But I just shut up and sort of counted to 10 and said, well, I'll be off the phone with them in a minute. And it was probably a mistake asking him to do me the favor because he saw the doing of the favor as another excuse to belittle and demean me to my face and insult me to my face. Because he was saying she needs me for this, so I can get out my anger at, displaced anger because I hadn't done anything to him, at somebody, whether it was female, male, or whatever. I was the emotional punch bag for that. Um, and I was an easy target. I was going to have to take it. But he had a moment where he realised I hadn't been in contact with him for very many years, and he realised that he had messed it up so badly. Any possibility of this reigniting a friendship out of this thing that I had asked him to do for me, um, by saying, you know what, I think we're very different people now, and I should just stay away or something like that. Basically, that was the short version of the thing. And I went, yes, I agree, and we parted. So I won't ever have to see him again, which is great because I won't have to be insulted by that person again. And a lot of women are saying, I would rather be alone than have somebody demean me in many ways every day, or not see me as a person, but think that my function is to be some kind of a slave or a housemaid to their needs and to their children, who a lot of them are having just because they think of the children as their legacy. And you know that they are thinking of their children that way because when they're calling you selfish and you ask why, when you say, I don't want children, um, they say that's selfish. And you go, why? There are plenty of children in the world. Um, they say, because, you know, you should want to give that to a man as like a gift. So it's their legacy. They see their legacy as being children. And you look at guys and you go, well, unless because I have had a career and everything and still do, I'm thinking, but what have you achieved in your life? Your legacy is what you achieve in your life and then pass on. When I pass on, my legacy is my artwork. Now, whether or not anybody wants my artwork when I pass on, I suspect they'll just throw it all out in the skip. But that is my legacy. That is what I see as my legacy. And all my doing art during my lifetime, talking to people about art and everything, that's my legacy as well. Going around showing and telling people that art is very important in life. And don't forget how important art is. And look, have a look at some art, go and see some art. That's my legacy. And creating all these pieces of art. So, that was my career. And to think that you have no career, but your legacy is your children, and then your children, when they grow up, they're supposed to get married. Where is their legacy? The legacy is just having children, is it? So that's just an egotistical thing then. You just want a mini me, and the mini me is going to grow up and look like me, so I'm not really dead. That's what that's about. It's about a fear of death, a fear of impermanence and death. Because they also say to you when they're getting really aggressive with you, when they're feeling very threatened that you're single, and they think that is that you're saying everybody should be single. Or it's, you're not saying because you get married if you want to get married. Like, it's the right choice for some people if they really love kids and they want to be, selfless enough to be walking around cleaning up after somebody all day. And they think that the kids are going to fill in some kind of love gap that they're not able to give themselves or get from anybody else or something. And that they're going to get all that returned back to them and it's going to be a two-way street and wonderful and everything. That's great. I'm happy for them. But if they're getting all angry with me, I'm sitting there thinking it's not for everybody. It really isn't for everybody. And you getting angry with me now about this shows how fearful you are of ex- other people exposing that it's all just covering up a fear of death, of you not going on in the world. That's really what it's about. And they give it away when they get really angry and say, "You're gonna die alone." That's the worst thing they can throw at you. You're gonna die alone. The bad news for everybody that's afraid of death is, or good news, we're all going to die alone. Whether somebody's holding your hand or you're dying in a room or hopefully not out on the street dying. When you're dying, you're doing it alone. Other people aren't dying with you. And in fact, uh, I would not like the idea of somebody in a room with me when I'm dying because I don't want to be, as I'm dying, worried about somebody else's grief and everything. I'd prefer it to be a private thing that I'm doing, and not have somebody weeping and wailing or being all depressing around me. I don't want to inflict any of that on somebody else. So the fact that somebody else needs somebody to hold their hand to give them some kind of illusion that they're not doing this on their own, to me is very mad. you know, it's nice to think that, okay, well, if I'm going to die, maybe I want nurses around because maybe I want loads of drugs pumped into me so I don't feel any sort of pain because I might be dying in pain. And I'd like to be stoned out of my head when I'm dying. Maybe there's that, or maybe I'd like somebody to wipe up poo or pee or something if that happens, or bad smells or anything like that. I might like those kind of services. So is that what they're talking about, maid service again? Because the person isn't going to be actually dying with you. You're going to be dying alone. Do you want to live alone as well, though? Is my question, because you're going to feel more alone if you're with somebody who doesn't see you as a human being and only sees you as a gender. And has this cardboard cutout idea of who you are and what you can do and everything. And, it's like that story. I told this story once about that boyfriend with the flowers. I go jogging in the mornings. Didn't this morning because the weather's cat. But I go jogging and my hair is quite often longer than this. And I tie it back because you don't want it all breeze flapping around your face and everything. It looks really stupid and feels uncomfortable. And, I met him coming back from jogging one day or dropped into him or something. And he said, "You know what? You look much prettier with your hair down." And I said, I'm just back from jogging. And he said, "Yes, but, it would be prettier if it was down." I said, "You want me to go jogging with my hair down? Would you like full makeup as well while I'm jogging?" I mean, get real, man. Like sometimes you just have to laugh at the stupidity of it. But this is how stupid it gets if somebody's only judging you based on looks. Because if you're judging somebody just on the outside, and not seeing the inside at all, that makes you very ridiculous and very shallow. And sometimes they do it as a keep you in your box strategy. One of the videos that I looked at was really sad. There were um, girls and fellas who were either married or boyfriend girlfriend, and they were having a painting date. So I thought it was a great idea. You do some painting. You go on a date and you paint each other on the date. And the paintings were really good. All the paintings I thought were really good. But one of the guys in particular, in fact, they all did it. The girls were incredibly talented and got very hard to do portraits, and the girls got a likeness of their boyfriend really well. The boyfriends, they didn't get the likeness good, but there was more. There was a lot more. One of the fellas painted his girlfriend. She was a black lady, and he painted her in like black, uh, black lamp black. Uh, her neck completely black, the rest of her black. But he painted. She was a girl that had braces. Sorry, calling her a girl, but anybody like under 40 is a girl to me at this stage. So she wore braces, but he painted her with her mouth open and the braces on, but with a big round mouth with big teeth that were had really red, almost bleeding gums, and her skin very deep brown and black, but the brushwork was so angry. People were saying in the comments he didn't try, and none of the men tried, but there was a lot of work in that painting. And he did try. It was actually a good painting because it had a lot of energy in it of anger. He was very, very angry, and he painted this really dark, threatening, very scriggly kind of lined face, skin tones, and black on a black stalk neck, and popping pink bloodshot eyes, and this big snarling mouth on the girl, and um, the glasses. She had a like me kind of big glasses. He painted the glasses smaller as if they were outlines of her eyes to make her eyes pop. And it was so angry. But clearly you could see he was very threatened by her as well. And then I thought, that's interesting. And then another guy painted his girlfriend or wife, whichever she was, and he said to her, when they revealed the painting at the end, and when the women showed their paintings, and they were very nice, they looked like the guy. Fellas showed their paintings, and the women, he said, "Here, hold that up beside you," and they held it up beside them, and the guy would be laughing. And one of the women, he said to her, she looked at it and she went, ah, you know, because it was a face not done well. It wasn't a good painting, and her sweatshirt, but with cartoon breasts, just a couple of smiles with uh, dots in the middle on this grey expanse of a shirt, and then the face was very stylized as well, and it was a very big body. And he handed it to her and he said, "I'm sorry, you're not fat at all." So he knew she looked fat in the picture, and he's pretending it's a joke. You say it's typical. It's his typical trick, and she's just horrified and doing that thing that girls do when we're horrified and embarrassed for a man. Laughing. Don't do that, ladies. Don't laugh, because they think that means you can do this again to me anytime you like. You can humiliate me like this. Don't laugh. Tell them, I know what you're doing, or tell them, I don't like that, or just don't do anything. Just look at them. But don't laugh. I know it's out of emotion, that's a confused emotion, because this is a person that's supposed to love you and they're showing hatred. That's confusing. You want to laugh because it's so crazy. But that's when you laugh, you're giving them permission to do that to you again, to try to humiliate you over and over, and they're enjoying you feeling like that. And I've seen it so many times. Like, when I go out places, I see guys putting their hands on women, and the women laugh. And I say to the women afterwards, "Why were you laughing when he put his hands on you?" She was going, "I was just so embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. That's why they laugh. It's not that they want the guy to put his hands on them. They don't. They don't. It's an assault." Some stranger putting his hands on you. The correct response to that is, "Get your hands off me." Get your hands off me now. And don't care what they think. Don't care if you're not a nice woman to them. I had a female friend once tell me, I went to the local shops, and some guy that was serving at the local shop, who hates women, I now know he hates women. He said something to me one day that made it clear he hates women. He said, "I let a male customer go before me first," and he said to me in the shop, he said to me, "Be careful of her. Uh, don't be chatting him up now. He has a wife, and the wife will probably beat you up." And I thought, wow, you really hate women, don't you? And then, like, it's never just a single instance. He was complimenting somebody else, a young guy that was mopping the floor in the shop, and uh, I was walking by to get something, and he said to the guy in front of me, because he hates me, he said to the guy in front of me, "You mop the floor like a woman, that's a compliment. Better than a woman, that's a compliment." And I thought, yeah, you really hate women. That's for me now. Because I questioned the price on something once. And a female friend told me, stuck up for him, when I said something about him. Yeah, he had lied about something. It was during that COVID time. He said I wasn't wearing a mask when I went in. He said an inspector had been into the shop and told everybody to wear masks, and I didn't believe him. And I said, when did he come in? And he admitted that he was lying under questioning from me. And I said, look, just own it. Why don't you just own it? You don't have to lie. Just, why don't you just say, "I want you to wear a mask. I'm uncomfortable with you not wearing a mask." Just say it, you know? And he hated me ever since then. So my friend at the time told me that, when I said, I went to the shop and he did something really weird again, said something very pointed in front of me, I really wasn't happy about it. She said to me, "Maybe you were standing in an aggressive way." She said, "What were you doing? Did you say something?" I said, "No." He was just saying something to me, or that was inappropriate or something. And she said, "Maybe it was the way you were standing." I said, "What?" "Maybe you were standing aggressively." Standing aggressively. You see, you can get it from other women if you don't play along with this. And the playing along, this person I'm talking about, she actually is a nut. She's known as a nut. But the point is, she's self delusional, because she likes to believe that everybody is lovely, a lovely person, and she gets along with everybody. And she doesn't like people. Most people don't like her, which doesn't mean she's not a nice person. There are other ways that she's not a nice person. But that doesn't mean she's not a nice person. But she likes to believe that everybody is lovely. So in order to fit in with this idea that most men are lovely too, she has to do these mental gymnastics. But she blames other women. So she props up these totally fake belief systems by dissing other women who are getting dissed enough by guys, because guys are walking around putting their hands on us, strangers approaching you. I once got into a car with somebody where I thought it was somebody I knew, then realised it was some guy cruising looking for women, and he turned out to be somebody that lived near me, and he tried to pick me up again, following me in his car, and it was so uncomfortable I went home again. So you either get somebody who hates you, or is being a predator about it. you know? And if you meet a guy who treats you like a human being, um, you know, you so pleased, you're probably going to fall in love with them. So be very careful of that trap, because they can be just pretending. Because they know what it kind of looks like on the surface. So some of them, um, there are some guys who are genuinely going to treat you like human beings, but they're so far and few between. And I'm telling you that from somebody who has like a long dating experience of dating different guys. Very few of them actually see you as a person worth talking to with an interesting mind. A lot of them just see you as a role or a function that might help them out somehow in life, or to be feared or something, or as a substitute mammy, or or a mommy and hate figure, because the two can go together, because they can have this little dance going on where they're trying to separate out from mummy and hating on mummy, but they need mommy as well. So, if you get ones that are still in a childish kind of mode, they've got that thing going. And then you've got the virgin whore dynamic as well that they have in their heads, some of them. That's, also a minefield. So, and it's all because they won't see you as a person, a lot of them. They won't say, like, oh, here's a person in front of me. They go, that's a woman. She's going to be into this, 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 and this. What can I get out of that? Oh, they're good at cleaning. She'll have kids for me. I can have a legacy now, even though I am only kind of, um, a serf working for slave wages. That's my legacy. The children, I won't really die. You see? Fear of death. So these women who speak about this have it really sussed out. The only thing I would say is that some of them are falling into a trap of behaving in the worst ways that those type of men behave, which is to make any interactions they have with women a transactional one, or have a transactional mindset about it. In other words, say to themselves, well, men have been using us for decades as free labor and all this. So, or centuries. So we need to use men as a free source of money and things that we want. That's transactional. That's treating yourself like you're an object, and that you have a sale value as an object, which is demeaning yourself. So modern society and consumerism has encouraged this idea of seeing everything as a product. Everything in life is not a product, and this is why I push the idea of you need art in your life, you need creativity in your life, because everything is not a product. Things are also a process, and there is very rewarding kind of fulfillment into engaging in processes that are meaningful for you. And sure, it can be a product in the end, and that you might get an artwork that you try and sell, but you don't have to. And you might never look at the artwork, but you had deep satisfaction out of doing it. I'm doing a thing at the project at the moment in art, and it's so satisfying. This probably won't ever be shown, but it's an artwork over an old journal, and I was doing a thing called Swedish death cleaning. And it's a kind of a looking at things later in your life when you're kind of downsizing a bit, and you're saying, well, what do I want to get rid of and what do I not want hanging around, kind of idea. And it's wonderful because you prioritize things in your life about what's really important to me. And I had all these old photographs, and I realized I don't look at photographs the way a lot of people do. Sometimes people don't look back at their photographs at all. But with me, I look back at photographs, and the things I remember in the photographs are patterns of fabrics. What people were wearing at the time brings back um, everything in the scene, and I get a replay of the scene and everything, and it's great. But I don't look at, oh, there's Auntie Nora, there's Uncle Joe, and I don't get a kick out of that. I seem to look at old photographs with an artist's eye. So what I'm doing is I am making collages from a lot of old photographs all cut up, and putting them over old journals. Because in Swedish deck cleaning, I don't want my old journals hanging around. But if I make them into art, it's taking ownership of your life's events and everything, and integrating them into your art. And that's what uh, being an integrated person who's growing throughout their life is about. When do you get the chance to do that if you're in full time caretaker mode? So, unless you've got a guy who is splitting chores with you, which is not that common still, uh, you're not going to get time to even have the time for that kind of introspection, let alone then creating out of yourself, living your own life fully enough in order to feel like, yeah, I've had a really rich life that doesn't involve serving everybody else all the time, but doesn't take away from anybody else either. And I still get to fully live the things that I wanted to live out, and it's great. And I don't miss having. I never wanted children, you know. And as for the husband, if a person isn't seeing you as a person at all, they're only seeing you as a role and trying to keep you kind of trained into that role all the time. Um, like it's so unrewarding, and you just look at them and you go, you're an empty shell of a person yourself for even wanting to do that to another human being. It doesn't suit me, sorry. So I understand where those women are coming from. A lot of women are saying, no, I don't want that. And um, guys are getting panicky. The younger ones are saying, women don't want to date me. And a lot of that is about their personalities, that they just seem to have gone further into the direction of, um, what they call the manosphere direction of hating women and characterizing women as all being sort of gold diggers out to destroy you by getting your money, and they don't care about you and all. They're saying they want women to care about them, but they don't want to see women as people. So women are not going to care about you if you don't see them as people. So for you can forget that idea. You can forget about going out with anybody because women are seeing through that and don't want these young men who are so dysfunctional now that you couldn't go out with them. Like even some of the guys I went out with that you forgive them when they're young and everything. You go like, okay, you're just learning the previous generation's stupid tricks and everything. You'll grow out of it. But then as you get older, you go, they don't get any cleverer as they get older. They just still treat us stupidly, and they treat us like we're little children while having the mentality of a child themselves and thinking that's going to go across with us like a big hit. And we're going to look up to this person who isn't even adulting. So women don't want to date these younger versions of these men. And men were getting a bit better for a while, before the manosphere thing came along and persuaded them that women don't want that. We did want that, actually, and we still do want people to treat us like we're people. We never didn't want that. Um, and then they're saying, there's something wrong with those women. They're going to be all, elderly cat ladies on their own, dying and on. Yeah, fine. Wow, phew, better than having somebody who is not functioning properly in your life, who you have to practically care for on, very basic ways where they can't manage themselves. And when you're on your own, you just learn to do the things that are kind of roles that guys have taken on themselves in households, like DIY stuff. And you have to learn to do that. Like, I mean, Sometimes you don't do it well, but sometimes as a girl, you can do it okay. I know this girl on YouTube who is kind of learned carpentry and is doing her own house in the woods up, you know. You do it out of necessity, but the kick you get out of doing things when you learn to do something new and you're let do it. I was never let do anything like that when I was young and had to kind of sneak into the shed where the guys kept all their tools. And I did that one day when the rest of them went out, and I said I wanted to stay home, and they all went on a family trip. I snuck into the tool shed, played with chisels and things, and cut the japers out of my hand, and didn't dare tell anybody. Had to have the finger wrapped up for a week to hide it. But I got to play with the tools. You see, nothing would stop me because I couldn't be the other sort of role. I'm not good at playing roles. I have to be just be myself. So this is why I ended up being myself. And it's I can tell you from this end of it, there's nothing terrible happens then, you know. You accept the hatred. You just have to put up with a lot of incoming hate because people find it very threatening. Women who want to do their own thing, and you're kind of wondering why are random strangers like somebody at the shop or somebody I'm just running into hating on me, or people getting angry with me when I tell them to take their hands off me or something. Why? It's because they think they have a right to run you, to tell you what to do, and to tell you what your role is. And if you step outside that role, um, you're bad, and they're going to tell everybody you're, you know, a dreadful woman. I mean, it's the same thing as I have a book there I must read it actually. Witches. They're going to tell everybody you're a witch, you see. So that's another one. Like if a guy calls you a witch, guys who call people the C word, the B word, or call women witches, they're people who are telling you get back in your box or we're going to burn you at the stake. And all these days, burning at the stake. The burning at the stake is just them and public opinion being against you. And who cares? Because you get to do your thing, you get a very fulfilled life, and it's fabulous. And I can't recommend it enough. And I'm so glad that this younger generation of women have copped on to that. Don't worry about the guys, they got themselves into this situation. They can get themselves out by leveling up and seeing us as people. That's all they have to do. Just realize that we're people. We're not a woman role, a woman that does this and does this for me and that for me, and everything else she does is just silly and I'll just indulge it and everything. Level up or stay out of our lives, basically, is what these women are saying. And that's great because they're not going to waste their lives then, you know, uh, doing things that they might regret because as they point out, you cut off a lot of options in your life when you choose the option of choosing marriage and children. So while it might open up the door of motherhood, it can shut other doors very firmly to you in a way that the doors can't be opened. You have to kind of go off and get new sets of keys and everything, and all kinds of rearranging has to go on, and it's very difficult. And marriage role is very difficult these days as well. So it's nearly easier in a way, and life flows in a lot easier way on your own once you don't care what everybody else thinks of you, because they don't think much of you anyway. As a married woman, they're not valuing you anyway. It's only your role as the mother of their children that they value. That's it. You know? And if that's enough for you, fine, you know. But you got to cancel yourself as a human being, basically. You're just a mother now. I don't mean to demean motherhood. It's an amazing thing. I'm just saying, don't don't cut off your other options before you realize you have other options. And those, you know, fair dues to those ladies, and I hope they don't kind of turn themselves into a transaction to in just copying men's style, because men's strategies aren't working for them at all. And I've gone on far too long and I haven't done enough of catching up on the sewing before I do my art this afternoon. So I'll say goodbye. I hope somebody would find that of interest. I don't know. Bye.